Good morning, I'm Walt Chambliss, University of Mississippi, and thank you for being here this morning. I know there's airplane flights waiting for folks and lunches waiting for folks, so we'll try to make this as productive as possible. But just put a little bit in context, I'm going to be talking about how we're working with local and regional partners to advance pharmaceutical compounds that are in the early stage of development. I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for 17 years, was Vice President of R&D at Schering-Plough, left there in 1999 to go to the university. And before I left, the pharmaceutical industry was working directly with a lot of universities, funding research, working as partners. That changed in about year 2000, and I'll show you. And one thing I want to put in perspective as we go through this is I worked for Searle, which was the third largest pharmaceutical company in the state of Illinois at the time. It's now Pfizer. I worked for Bristol Myers in Indiana. It was the second largest pharmaceutical R&D employer in the state of Indiana at the time. And I worked for Schering-Plough, which was the largest employer of pharmaceutical R&D in the state of Tennessee at the time. Had 3,000 employees, now it's down to about 300, but it was the largest at the time. Anyone out there know what the largest employer of pharmaceutical R&D scientists in the state of Mississippi is? My Ole Miss colleagues need to raise your hand. We are the largest employer of pharmaceutical scientists in the state of Mississippi. So when that is the case, you need to reach out and form local partners to build more critical mass and regional partners. And I'm not going to be talking about a lot of models that are going down now. Pfizer has an innovation model. Eli Lilly, we partner with them on an open innovation model because it has a lot of details. But I want to talk about the kind of partnerships we've done. So we have had a long history of drug discovery at the university, focused mostly on natural products. Half of all prescription drugs that are on the market today can trace their origin to a natural product, a plant, a marine organism, or microorganisms. We have also built strengths in medicinal chemistry and formulation and drug delivery. So we have the critical mass within the university to discover and do early stage development work. Before 2000, pharmaceutical companies would license compounds. As I said, I had a pretty good budget up until 1999 that I could fund research at universities. In 1999, my budget was zero. I had no money to fund research at universities. The model shifted to we're going to buy compounds or buy companies that have gone through phase 2 clinical trials, which is a small clinical trial. Then it went to we want to find compounds that have gone through phase 3 clinical trials, which are major clinical trials. A university typically can't do that. So we need to find a way to advance those compounds to get it to industry. So I'm going to talk about 4 partnership models. One, a faculty-started company located in our industrial park in Oxford. Second, a regional public-private partnership in Nashville. Third, a privately held virtual pharmaceutical company in Memphis. And fourth, the publicly traded startup company, which has its headquarters in California, but its laboratories in our innovation center. So first, with the faculty-started company. El Soli Laboratories was created in 1985. Dr. Mahmoud El Soli is a faculty member in the School of Pharmacy. He's still a faculty member in the School of Pharmacy. He's half-time his company, half-time the university. He's been doing that since 1985. His initial focus was to do drug of abuse testing, analytical testing, mostly in urine for major sports arenas. And he's advanced beyond that from a lot of encouragement from us and also from hiring a lot of graduates coming out of Ole Miss. So he's now gone into more of analytical development, formulation development, and if anyone knows what the letters GMP mean, that's a big deal. He's now doing good manufacturing practices synthesis, so we can get compounds made down the street from the university that we can go into clinical trials with, and that's major. Conflict of interest, one of my jobs in the tech management group is to manage conflict of interest. We have a very strong memorandum of agreement with his company, him as an individual, and the School of Pharmacy and the university, so it clearly lays out what he does and what he doesn't do. And that's been active since 1985. It's been amended a couple of times to make it current, but it's obviously working because it's been in place 20 years. We also had a state auditor come in and audit us once over a conflict of interest and showed her the paperwork and she went away. We also have, very fortunate in the state of Mississippi, we have the Mississippi University Research Authority, which provides an exemption to the state ethics law, which specifically allows an employee of the university to have a significant financial interest in a company that has licensed their technology. So we've gotten specific approvals for him over the years. How we collaborate, he does work on his dime. We do work on the university on our dime if we think it's a good project. We also partner with him on SBRs and STTRs. His company won the Tibbet Award in the mid-1990s from the federal government as being the best STTR company in the country. He and his employees assign their patent rights to the university. We're responsible for patent prosecution, and licensing income is then shared. We have an agreement each time we do this. It starts out 50-50 and is adjusted either way based on who's making the most significant contributions. We recoup patent expenses and then share income. And outcomes, I'll get to that later. The next one, I heard this came up on Sunday from Vanderbilt's presentation, Cumberland Emerging Technologies in Nashville, Tennessee. It's a joint initiative of Cumberland Pharmaceuticals, which is a specialty pharmaceutical company in Nashville, Vanderbilt University, and the state of Tennessee. So a very unique operation. Its focus area is to partner with university researchers, tech transfer offices, and to advance pharmaceutical compounds to meet unmet needs. The reason we partnered with them, and we had talked to several groups about partnering, and we were the first university outside of Vanderbilt to sign on with I'll call them CET, was they understood the university culture. They're coming in knowing how faculty think, how administration thinks. So they're not trying to change our culture or change our model. They're working with us. They are very good at evaluating technologies, and we can send them any new pharmaceutical compound that we're excited about. They will triage it and give us positive feedback or negative feedback. They have experience in product development and regulatory development, and that's where most startups fail. They don't have the product development experience or knowing how to get through the regulatory process. They also have grants and project management experience. They understand how to commercialize, and they have their own incubator system where they now have formulation capabilities. How we collaborate, we co-develop new pharmaceutical products with CET. They provide direct funding when they're excited about something, but typically they're partnering with us for SBRs and STTRs, and they do the heavy lifting. From those from the university who are responsible for grants, often the university's doing the heavy lifting, preparing the grant. They do the heavy lifting. They know how to do it. The basic model is we approach them with a technology that we're interested in. If they say yes, we pay the patent expenses. When we share the patent expenses with them, they reimburse us for half of the patent expenses. We do a license agreement with them. They are responsible for business development and licensing, so if anyone contacts me about an interest in our compound that's partnered with CET, I'll forward them to CET's licensing person, and we have individual license agreements to handle that. The outcome of this is we've got 2 license agreements executed with them. Both are anti-infectives that are in preclinical development. They've evaluated several other technologies and given us great feedback on what needs to be done for them to be interested or any other company to be interested. And they've also sponsor our Scientific Achievement Award, Research Award in the School of Pharmacy. And that would have never happened without this relationship because they had no connection to the School of Pharmacy before we started this drug discovery relationship. Second one is a privately held virtual pharmaceutical company. And I wanted to be able to name them, but I never could get their CEO to respond to an email with, is it okay if I use your name? So they're missing some publicity opportunity. But this is Virtual Co., located in Memphis. Formed by former pharmaceutical executives. These were Eli Lilly executives, and that's a current model going on now. Cashed out executives are forming small companies. And they've licensed an early stage topical dermatology product from us. How we collaborate, exclusively license the patent rights to them. They have assembled a very strong group of consultants, the best team I have seen formed from any of our virtual companies, people who know the next step. And typically, our startups will come to us and say, what is the next step? And that's when you know there's a problem, because if they can't see the next step and they're coming to the university asking for next step in development, there's not a good match. They keep our researcher involved as a scientific advisor. They manage the project, so it's not following us to manage. And we're still managing patent prosecution because we have more expertise in that area than they do, but they're paying all patent expenses. Outcome, the IND, Investigation of New Drug, is going to be filed next month. So that's a major milestone where they're going to be able to start doing first-in-man studies. Next one is a publicly traded startup. They did a reverse merger and are now publicly traded if you want to invest in this company. Nemus Biosciences, located in California, but they've opened their laboratory at the university. They also was formed by former executives from Amgen and GlaxoSmithKline. They have great expertise in not only development, but also clinical and reimbursement, which is very important in drug discovery now. They license a prodrug of, I'll tell you, it's Delta-9 THC, which is the active constituent out of cannabis. You may know that we are the nation's only legal grower of cannabis, so been doing research in cannabinoids for many, many years. So they've licensed a prodrug for delivering 3 different routes of administration. How we collaborate is typical. We've got a license agreement with them. We always give more favorable terms to a startup, pushing back what they'll need to pay to us far down the road so that they're not worried about paying us instead of doing the next study. They've assembled a very strong group. They've hired some strong people, but they also brought in some consultants that are helping them a bit. They're using our scientific advisor, our researcher as a scientific advisor. And again, we're responsible for patent prosecution, but they're paying 100% of the patent expenses. Preclinical studies are ongoing on 3 different projects, and they're also funding new research in 2 areas that we were not researching at all. So beyond the drug delivery of Delta-9 THC, they're funding other cannabinoid research for other indications. So I want to pull it all together and go back to El Soli Laboratories. So why is it important that we have a faculty startup company located in the industrial park at the university? It's because we partnered with El Soli Laboratories on the STTR of one of the compounds that was licensed to Cumberland Emerging Technologies in Nashville. So our regional partner wouldn't have had anything to license. There wouldn't have been enough data for them to even see it if it wasn't for the STTR grant that we had with El Soli Laboratories. Second, we partnered with El Soli Laboratories on another STTR grant for the compound that was licensed to the virtual company. We wouldn't have had the critical data, and they were very critical. They wanted to see quite a bit of animal data, which we were able to fund through the phase 2, the STTR, before they licensed it. Third, we partnered with El Soli Laboratories on an STTR that did the development of the prodrug that we've licensed to Nemus Biosciences. So it was an amino acid ester derivative of THC, very novel work that had to be done, a lot of in vivo animal studies that had to be done to proof of concept. So Nemus Biosciences wouldn't have existed if it hadn't been for our relationship with El Soli Laboratories. So overall, we've done 7 license agreements since I've been to the university in 1999 that came from work done in collaboration with El Soli Laboratories. 4 of those are still active. 3 died a death during development, which a lot of projects do die of death in pharmaceutical development. And we have 2 other active license agreements that we're pursuing. We have option agreements where additional work is being done by the company to determine if they want to license it. So the fact that we are the largest employer of pharmaceutical scientists in the state of Mississippi requires us to form partnerships locally with faculty started company and regionally with Cumberland Emerging Technologies, so that ultimately at least 1 or 2 of these will get to the market to treat the patients, which is the reason that we're doing all this work in the first place. So with that, I'll stop and answer any questions you have. And everybody knows if you've been up here, you can't see. So anybody have a question, shout it out. Yes?
Andres Diaz from University of Mississippi. I was just wondering, of course, our pharmacy department is just very good. How can that be transferred, that expertise, to other departments in the university?
Okay, well, I can talk from it from an Office of Research and Technology Management perspective. I was hired in '99 to do technology transfer and business development just for the School of Pharmacy. And we set this model up for the School of Pharmacy. In 2004, I became responsible for the rest of the campus. So we do have this model set up for the rest of the campus. In 2004, when I became responsible for the rest of the campus, 95% about of our intellectual property was from the School of Pharmacy, 5% was from the rest of the university. It's now 60-40. And it's because we're building up engineering, building up the National Center for Physical Acoustics. So the model is there. What we got to do is, you got to understand in the School of Pharmacy, we got a critical mass of 250 researchers working in an area, drug discovery. We have our largest other critical mass is the National Center for Physical Acoustics, which has about 20. So there's a scale thing that has to occur there as well. So if we have a technology that is of interest coming out of the different units, we know how to handle it, we have good connections, and it will get licensed. Just one other thing on that. We do have a partner like Cumberland Emerging Technologies for the Physical Acoustics Group, and we've licensed 3 projects through that route, 3 technologies through that route. Yes?
Gus Koussoulis from Louisiana State University in Baton Rouge. The conflict of interest issue is actually one of the biggest stumbling blocks in actually promoting faculty to do startups. So was that a specific policy for this particular faculty member, or is it a standardized policy? And also, you mentioned the exemption to the state ethics. Is that a standard thing, or was it only specific for this particular person?
Okay, I'll start with the first one. The Mississippi University Research Authority is a state law. It applies to any university employer, and we have maybe 20 right now that have gone through that process that still have. You don't have to have your own company. It's to have a significant financial interest in a company, which is $5,000. So if you're making over $5,000 a year as a consultant for that company, you would go through that process. So I prepare all the paperwork for that, so it's very streamlined. As far as your second question, our university realizes that conflict of interests are inherent in what we're doing, and we welcome that as long as people are transparent. I've not seen us ever be able to overcome that. So I think the faculty understand that we're here to help them. We are a service group. To Tony's point, that's what we're here for, is to serve the faculty. And if they have an interest in starting a company, we just tell them, here's the potential for conflict of interest, here's a typical plan we put together, and we go forward. Okay? Thank y'all.